Hello and welcome to another episode of Upon Further Review, your thorough Northeast Indiana high school football recap and preview show each and every week right here alongside Eric Dukevich. I am the coach Shannon Griffith, and we thank you for joining us here this evening as we prepare to head into, I think it's week 6 now, if my memory serves me correct, but it's hard to believe that we're already past the halfway point of the season, and we got a chance to witness what I would call a rivalry that has become that over the past few years. Carroll versus Snider out at the Gorsuch Complex there at Carroll High School. And I want to talk about that here in a second, but also some really good games around the area with East Noble and Leo. What a dandy that turned out to be. So a lot of games to talk about, a lot of games to ponder on. And then, of course, we'll lead into what is our next stop here later in the show. Doot, the Snider Carroll game, I guess, in some respects, surprised me to a degree. Yep. In the fact that Carroll really was able to dominate both sides of the line of scrimmage Friday night there at Carroll High School. And Snider just offensively it was sloppy. I mean, it was not the typical Snider offense that you would expect to see in each and every Friday night. And I think a lot of that had to do with Carroll's defense more so than anything, because they have vastly improved since we had first saw them against Hamilton Southeastern week 1, and understanding that Hamilton Southeastern is a pretty darn good football team. But it just seemed to me that Carroll's defense was too much for Snider's offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think from the jump, it just seemed like Carroll was one or maybe 2, in some cases 3 steps ahead of the Snider Panthers, and I, that 14-0 first quarter for Carroll, really, I mean, it put it away early. I mean, obviously, when you win 30-6, I mean, Snider didn't even get a touchdown in the game, but nevertheless, I think we gotten so accustomed to this game being so close. I think we said 11 points in the previous 3 matchups of these two squads. And so to see something like this, a 24-point shellacking at the hands of Carroll over Snider, it certainly was a surprise. And I think, it lived up to the hype in the sense that I think the playmakers that these guys that Carroll has, and Jimmy Sullivan and Van Pelt, were really able to get things going, and outplayed Snider thoroughly. And I think once you dig yourself in that hole, it's hard to come back out of it. It's something we don't see a lot from Snider because they don't find themselves in that circumstance. And I think on the flip side of that, when Carroll got up that big, they weren't really going to take their foot off the gas either.
No, Jimmy Sullivan was 10 of 25 for 183 yards, 40% completion percentage. So he did, I guess Snider did hold him to well under what he had been doing, but he threw for 3 touchdowns. He rushed for another 94 yards and a touchdown. And then on top of that, Jaden Van Pelt had 5 receptions, 65 yards, 2 TDs. Griffin Shealy had the biggest play of the night, 36-yard reception that was phenomenal, diving and really selling out to make a play. Mason Ballman had the other touchdown. It just was one of those nights that, Snider's defense, for the most part, I would say did decently. They got wore down the second part of that game. And at the end of the day, Snider's going to have to address some things offensively in terms of what they want to do, because right now it just appears to me they're searching for an identity a little bit. And that's not a custom, I guess I would say, but they got to find some answers so that they can continue, because they're still not out of this thing, far from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's still games to be played in both divisions, and ultimately, we mentioned it too. I mean, as the ping pong balls may fly come October, this may be an opportunity. I mean, this may be a sectional matchup first round, and And we've seen where Snider has, in those cases where they've lost to a Northside in the regular season, flipped the script. We won't go down that road quite yet just because we don't know what those matchups will be. But I think for Snider, yes, it's the offensive side of things. And, Aaron Vance is the quarterback. He's getting established there and it's come along, and saw him struggle in the first couple games of the year, particularly that, against Warren Central, and then the first half against East Noble. But then we saw the really good stuff too. And we've seen, Jordan Davis, a 5-touchdown game a week ago against Southside. Of course, he was their leading rusher on Friday night with 78 yards, but just, barely cracking 100 in rushing and 32 yards through the air with no touchdowns. It was just a struggle. Yes, the defense, I think, played well. We saw Brandon Logan in some spots. Landon Fry had a decent game.
Yes, he did. He was really good.
Ability and those guys were hitting hard. I think at the end of the day, it wasn't like they played bad. I think it was just Carroll really looked superior in that game. And I think, I wonder how much of last year when they got to the end of the regular season and they were sitting on their field and they thought that they were co-SAC champs, and then, come to find out they weren't, how much that played into the last year. And so here we are. But a big game. Like you mentioned, Sullivan, his 3 touchdowns, another one on the ground, so 4 total. Van Pelt had 2 through the air, and they just worked their DBs. I mean, they really had a really good offensive game plan, and really from the jump, from that first quarter on, it was Carroll's game, and Snider really struggled to find any sort of momentum to get going.
Yeah, you talked about Fry. I thought he was a big standout for their defense, outside of, Brandon Logan and what he brings to the table. But he played a hell of a ball game at linebacker for them. And I think he really did himself proud in his effort and what he was able to accomplish, making plays in space and, the traditional Snider linebackers that were traditional to see. Now, the other game that really was in the top-notch area from the Northeast States' standpoint was this Leo East Noble game that ultimately went right down to the wire, last second touchdown, from my understanding. But we're going to get the best answer to all that because we're going to bring in Dylan Krehl in from East Noble High School, the standout running back, linebacker. I think he even kicks it every once in a while. Really good football player that we've watched over the last 3 years or so. Dylan, how you doing, my man?
Oh, I'm doing awesome. Thank you guys for having me on.
Well, we've really enjoyed watching you play over the last few years, and you're always fun to watch, and just how you play the game. It's truly amazing what you and your teammates do, because a lot of you guys go both ways. And I know that a couple of weeks when we had you against Snider there at Northrop High School, the game that got lightning out, that game to me was pretty much a slobber knocker, if you want to say that, for the Friday night. I know that having to get up the next day, travel back down to Fort Wayne after a very hot night did not lend itself to you guys in terms of what the ultimate outcome was. But that ball game 2 weeks ago that we had you guys was pretty darn good.
Yeah, I think that was just a stepping stone for us overall. If you go back and look at that game, our defense played amazingly. And then our offense, we took a lot from that game. Seeing as our O-line, we kind of had to fix a few things. And getting an early test like we did against Snider, I think really helped us, especially this past week when we played Leo, who had a great defensive end in Brock Schott, and then great D lineman in Tristan Roberts too. So I think that Snider game was one of the best games, even though we didn't win, it was just a great game overall for us because it helped us develop into a better team.
Yeah, no question. I mean, this past week against Leo, Biddle had another great game, 14 of 21, 217 yards. Ended up having two touchdown passes. You had 218 yards, a real long run of 63, and a touchdown. And your wide receiver group is, again, Biddle's doing a great job of spreading the ball around between Swagger, Tesh, and Hatton. Offensively right now, you guys are hitting on all cylinders, and irregardless of where you're at in a ball game, when you guys need a score, it just seems like your offense is able to step up and make the plays necessary you need to make on any Friday night.
Yeah, so I would definitely say our wide receiver group this year is probably one of the most underrated in the NEA, just because you have so many players. Like you have myself and you have Dallas Plattner in the backfield, two really good running backs that really get most of the limelight for our offense. And then you have Riley, who's just an amazing all-around quarterback. He can scramble, he can throw the ball, which he showed on a Friday night against Leo. He's a versatile quarterback. And then our wide receiver group really blew up this week, with Mason Trish having an amazing game overall for us, and then Landon Swagger having a breakout game on Friday night. Not many people had heard about Swag going into Friday night, but he's just an absolute dog. He's a great ball player. If you saw that catch he made at the goal line, that diving catch, it just goes to show how much work he puts in the week. And then we have Logan Hatton, who is just a freak of nature. He had that pick 6 on defense to start the game out for us. And then he had amazing catches on offense that really helped spark our offense, score more points. So overall, I think we're just a well-balanced team this year between the run and the passing game.
Yeah, Dylan Krehl joining us from East Noble tonight here on Upon Further Review. Dylan, looking at this, just not just this past game, 218 yards on the ground for you, but 10.9 per carry. You're efficient. I mean, it's not just that you're racking up yards, the efficiency. Talk a little bit about that. How that mentality of barreling the guy down in front of you or hitting the guy. I mean, you're a linebacker too, so you play both ways. You know how that style is. That smash mouth style, that's proved to be effective for you. Just talk about kind of your style as a lower to the ground runner kind of deal, kind of the emphasis on your game that you've had as you've gone through the East Noble program.
Yeah, so I can't take all the credit for that 10 yards of carry, because my O-line and tight ends block amazing for me up front. Without those guys, I wouldn't be averaging 10 yards of carry. So, and then I would say my downhill style of running definitely came from my dad, who says that you always got to quit dancing. Every time we watch running backs that dance and try and get through holes, he always loses his lid and gets all mad about it. So he never tells me to dance. He always tells me once you see a hole just to go right through it. And then I also have to shout out Ty Lawson, our running back coach, who he tells me not even to dance too. He knows that I'm more of a physical running back, that I'm not the most shiftiest running back in the NEA, but he tells me to get downhill. Like in this play you just seen right here, I just hit the hole. I'm not trying to get shifty with it. I'm just trying to hit holes and get upfield and get first downs for our offense to set us up for better field position.
Absolutely. Talk about the change with Coach Stewart coming in. Luke Amstutz, now athletic director, activities director there, had been the longtime coach. He moves up. You bring Coach Stewart in. I know Coach Amstutz really wanted to coach this group your senior year. Didn't work out that way, but ultimately that transition with you guys, that senior class that you guys have with Coach Stewart coming in, and the success that you've been able to find early, just talk about that transition and really new opportunities for this Knights team.
Yeah, so it kind of sucked when Stutz left, because he's been around my entire high school career at East Noble, so he's the only coach I've ever had. But with Stewart coming in, he's actually been a really great coach for us overall. He's instilled a smash mouth offense, which you guys see on Friday nights. But it's been really easy for us to transition over to Stewart, because everybody on this team that is starting this year has had 2 or more years of varsity experience, which kind of takes off a lot of the pressure for Stewart, because he knows he can trust us in big games like on Friday night. Stewart knew he can put all of us in there, and he would have confidence in us no matter what we did, because we are all so experienced.
Yeah. Defensively against Leo, I mean, without telling me everything, because you might see this group again, what was it, the emphasis this past week in practice, the week leading up to the game on Friday, that you guys really, and from a defensive side of things, with all the playmakers they had, the ability to just hang in there, and when it came down to the late, to make those plays, to the big interception and all of that late in the game, to stay in there and to be able to capitalize and ultimately get the win really late?
Yeah, so this week in practice, we were talking about how it was our fault last year that we lost in the sectionals because we gave up 45 points on defense. And so we felt like we had something to prove this week in our defense, especially since we've been playing extremely well this year and really only having one bad game against the second part of Snider. But coming into this game, we knew we had to stop Brock and Landon because they were two amazing players, exceptional players with great abilities. And then Nate Foster, their running back, who is electrically fast. We knew we were going to have to try and slow him down to give us an even better chance. And we knew with Esaguera, their new quarterback, he a little less of an experience, so we knew we had to get in his face. We had to challenge him, and that allowed our DBs to play loose and make those interceptions that they did and really give us a turn for the tide. And so overall, we just had to play loose and really get our get back from last year in the sectional game.
Well, I think you did that. Now, looking ahead here, and not that we want to jump too far ahead, of course, this week you head to Belmont, which is not always a fun trip, just the standpoint. It's a little further away for you guys in that regard. But here in a couple weeks, you've got Columbia City coming up to East Noble, which will be a monumental game. Right now, with you two being essentially tied at the top of the NE8 standings, what is it? Do you know much about Columbia City and from a football perspective? I'm sure you probably know a lot of the different players that they have, but have you had a chance to really start looking at those guys yet, or has it been mostly on you guys after this big win?
Yeah, we haven't looked at CC yet because we know we have to take care of Norwell first because Norwell's this Friday. And so we know we have to take care of Norwell first because if we don't get through Norwell, then there's no shot at us winning the conference. And so we have to do a Norwell first. And then after we get past Norwell this Friday night, then we can look towards CC next week and really start honing in on how to stop Columbia City. But I'm just looking for a great showdown come CC. They have amazing players on both sides of the ball, and obviously, they have Stratton at wide receiver, who's just a phenomenal athlete. But they also have running back Landon Fazio, who's been tearing it up in the Northeast Conference this year. So, overall, I mean, we're going to have to keep doing what we're doing. And even though we did beat Leo this Friday, we have to put it past us now and look forward into the future now. Because if we're going to sit back on this Leo win, then we're not going to be as productive as we can come Friday night. So this week, we're really just going to focus on Norwell and being the best East Noble team we can possibly be.
Yeah, I mistakenly said Belmont, and I got my two schools messed up there because New Haven, it goes to Columbia City, and that's a team that always has given Columbia City a little bit of fits in and out every year because there's always that one place. It seems like in the NE8, you all have your one place that in years past has tripped you up or given you one of those games that you weren't expecting the result that you got, but you guys have kind of handled that to date right now. And then, like you said, you have Norwell this week, and then you head into the month of October, which brings a lot of different things on the plate. But right now, I think you guys are playing really great football. Your defense is playing well. Of course, you're leading, you were the leading tackler from Friday night as well. Let me ask you this, and then we can let you get out of here to go do some studying, I'm sure. But what is it for you playing both ways? Running back, you're going to take a lot of shots. I mean, it's just incumbent of the position. But at the same time, you do the same thing defensively as a linebacker. Now, you're giving them more than you're taking them. But at some point, how does that for you in terms of you're just wear and tear in your own body throughout a Friday night and stuff?
Yeah, so this year I've really tried getting out of bounds and not taking dumb hits or late hits that I shouldn't be taking in games. Like if you watch Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks, he knows he's getting up there in age, so he doesn't take any hits that he has to take. And so I've really tried to implement that in my game, especially this year, because I try and get as many yards as I can, and then I just get out of bounds, try and save my body, especially for defense. But overall, I've just been trying to keep myself healthy by not making dumb plays and trying to keep myself out of harm's way.
What are you looking to do for in college? Or is there anything you're looking for special in a college? Are you looking to play at the next level? What does that look like for you on the horizon?
I'd love to play at the next level, but right now I'm really looking to a college that'll help me get my degree in secondary education, because that's the one thing I want to do. I want to be a teacher. I want to give back to the communities that have gave me everything in life, and then I also want to be able to coach. So just getting my secondary education would be an amazing way to help me get into the coaching. But I do want to play football. But football's probably a number 2 for me right now.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear that you like to get into education.
I
like
can
to
hear the
that.
coach in you too. That's for
I
sure.
can hear a little
Picked
bit.
up a lot of things from Coach Amstutz and all those guys along the way. So,
Oh yeah, mini Luke Amstutz. No,
yeah, there you go. And you're a great wrestler too. Don't want to.
That's right.
Point that
Yeah,
out. A
thank you.
semi-state qualifier. You play baseball in the East Noble baseball team. So a 3-sport athlete at a bigger school. That's great to see. And so we certainly wish you the best the rest of the season, Dylan, and the rest of your career at East Noble and all the sports you do. And maybe one day we'll see you on the sidelines coaching, and it would not surprise us one bit.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on.
You
all
bet,
right.
Dylan. Good luck.
All right, best of luck the rest of the way. Yep, that was Dylan Krehl. It's everywhere. Well, anyway, Dylan from East Noble joining us tonight on Upon Further Review. And wow, Coach, I mean, that was a great interview talking to him. Great to have somebody from East Noble on, and we picked the right guy. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Senior, a leader of that team, a really solid football player, and year after year, they're able to find the key guys to put in the right places to be in that upper echelon of the conference, to be formidable in postseason, and to really establish a great group of kids that will go on beyond football and whatever they do.
Yeah, I mean, we've watched him for a couple years, and he's always been one of those guys that catches your eye because of how he plays the game. He plays hard on both sides of the ball. You know, whatever speed he does have, he gets every bit out of it each and every Friday night. And, you know, he's a kid that goes both ways, but he makes a lot of plays defensively too. I mean, he does a great job in reading and reacting. And I just like the way the kid plays the game because he plays it honestly. He's not in any shape, form, trying to draw a lot of attention to himself. He just kind of goes out and does his job, whether it's running the ball or leading the defense, and you get a honest effort out of him each and every Friday night. And he's one example of a kid that you can point to and you know, be that leader by the way you play, because I doubt he's one of those guys that says much. He does his talking by the way he plays. So
yeah.
I just think he's one of those kids in this area of Northeast Indiana that's a pretty darn good football player, and I would imagine there'd be a lot of coaches that would love to have him on.
Yeah, and I think that's been the beauty. Also, we talk so much about the new conference alignment for the SAC and opening up the first couple weeks, but that has benefited teams like East Noble too, because they're able to play a team like Snider, and he even mentioned it. You know, they lost that game, but the ability, I mean, to play a whole nother level of game, they're going to take a lot out of that you don't get in playing some of the other teams in the area and even in your own conference. And that's true for Snider as well. But also too, I think it just bodes well for everybody to have those great matchups that we see. East Noble Snider last 2 years was one of them. And that like you said, that carried them to this game against Leo. They knew what it took to beat one of those solid teams, and you know, 6 in a row for the Leo Lions over East Noble heading into last Friday, and they flipped that script. And another close one, because I think 11th meeting in the last 6 years for those two teams, and I mean, most of them have come down to a touchdown or less. So that's, you know, another one last Friday night. And again, we could see this matchup again later on this year in sectionals.
Well, that's the thing that, you know, you get two teams like this and you'd rather not see them too early.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe this is the type of game that helps Leo the most, recognizing the fact that you can't turn the football over a bunch and expect to win. And that's what they did Friday night. They turned it over, and a good East Noble team was able to capitalize off of that. And they did it and scored within the last seconds of the game to get that win. If I'm saying that correctly, because I thought they scored like with 40 seconds left or 35 seconds left in the game.
Yeah. Well, there was there was a lot going on there because there was some late. I'd have to go back through the play-by-play, but ultimately the game-winning touchdown happened with about 5 seconds left. But late in that fourth quarter, there was a pick six and there was a turnover. And I mean,
yeah, there was a lot going on, but
there was a lot going on when you have a 35-29 game. But it was a close game. I think they, that run we saw from Dylan, I think even too, if I pull it up, that at that point the game was 28-21 with 2 minutes left, and he breaks away. I think it was 63 yards. So this one, in a lot of ways, probably put it away. But Leo came storming back and trying. In fact, they must have scored. Yeah,
they had to score, but it would have been 29-28 then, right?
Yeah. So anyway,
no, that one put it up 34. These
clips that we have, courtey of Summit City Sports, are out of order. These are more just highlights of Dylan.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think it was one of those.
You're right. They scored with 2 minutes left. That made it 34-21, and Leo must have scored late to get it in position to,
and then probably recovered it on,
right. So, but anyway, you look at it, I guess you could call that an instant classic.
Oh yeah,
of a game, and like you said, thanks to Summit City Sports and what they do for all the broadcasts that they do, and appreciate them letting us borrow some of the clips because of the type of game it was.
Yeah,
in that regard.
Yeah, and I mean, phenomenal game out there. Oops, and it paused on me there, but a lot of good players out there, and Leo will be back. I mean, it's not over for them. I think both teams still have Columbia City, so it's not over by a long shot. We saw a year ago New Haven, and we had a 3-way tie, so it wasn't just the game that New Haven stuck their nose in there and was able to knock off Leo, and Leo knocked off East Noble, and East Noble knocked off New Haven, and it was kind of the round robin of losses, which led to that 3-way tie. So still a lot of football to be played in the conference. Not just that conference, Coach, but the SAC. We move along to some big games this week and keep marching along. The games are maybe not be as big, but I know, for one of those, one of them that jumps off the page. I mean, you got Snider Homestead this week, and you got Northside versus Bishop Luers.
Yeah, those are the two probably predominant big games this week. Now, Carroll has to travel out to Wayne, so Wayne had got themselves right with a big win over Southside, and Wayne is always a scary team because with the talent they have, they can do a lot of things. Like we said Friday, if they're hitting on all cylinders, then they're a type of team that about this time of year can start giving some teams in front of them some fits. So, and plus that one is a game that's out of the division in that regard, but that one, and then like you said, the Northside at Bishop Luers, that should be a decent ball game as well. Those two are kind of 1-2 in the B division right now. Luers with a 3-0 record and Northside with 2-1. So, those are going to be the games that probably has everyone's attention.
Yeah, and for the 1380 game of the week presented by Midwest Box Breaks, we'll be out at Luers Field for Northside versus Luers in our 1380 game of the week. 7:00 kickoff, pregame at 6, postgame at the Southgate Pizza Hut, and it should be a dandy there. And of course, this Friday, one of the big games in the area is going to be Northside at Bishop Luers in a big game in that B division for the SAC. And joining us now, we're pleased to be joined with the quarterback for the Northside Legends, Tristan Newsome. Tristan, thanks for joining us tonight here on Upon Further Review.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so talk about, first of all, I think really Friday night, another big game for you, a big win for Northside over Northrop. Really a big season for you so far statistically. Just talk about the season so far for you and really how you've been able to kind of find your groove through the first couple of weeks as you are taking the reins as Northside's quarterback?
To start, I would just like to thank y'all for having me again. And second of all, like, I got to give all my props to my teammates, really. Like, my O-line, they do such a great job with blocking and, like, you know, so I can throw the ball or our running back can run the ball, you know. And then our receivers, they just catch everything that comes their way. So it's just easy for me.
Sure. You talk about the great playmakers that you have on this team. A lot of talent on this Northside team. What's that like for this team as far as practice and things going through, knowing that you got such a good, talented roster, but also the hard work that goes into it and working together towards getting this Northside team rolling and continuing any success that you guys can find?
We just got to keep going strong like we've been, and like we have like so many playmakers on the team, so like it's like easy for me and the team to just like, you know, do us, like play 48 minutes of Northside football.
Sure. Looking at some of your highlights here, you've been able to do it on the ground and through the air. You know, just pulling up some of your stats here too. If I can't, yeah. You know, Friday versus Northrop, you threw for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, rushed for another 155. For the season, you're completing 75% of your passes, just under 150 yards a game, another almost 90 on the ground, 13 total touchdowns, and just those 3 interceptions. Your maturation as a quarterback, I mean, just talk, is there a particular part of playing QB at Northside that you like? Is it the passing game, the rushing game? Kind of talk me through that as far as what, or maybe it varies week to week. Just talk to me a little bit about your game and just what it's like, you know, from a quarterback perspective for you.
Okay, so like our team is like so balanced. It's like one game we can like run the ball super well, and then the other game we just pass the ball super well. So like our team being rounded to me is a good thing for me, because when one thing's not working, we can rely on the other thing to get us the win.
Sure. It says on there, interesting for you this season, switching back to quarterback. You were defensive back, you know, primarily a year ago. I know with Northside, it's always throwing different guys in different scenarios to see what you can get, especially a talented player like yourself. The switch, you know, you play quarterback, I believe, as a freshman. You're back as the quarterback. Just talk about that and coming back to that position and really the challenges that have presented themselves and the fun and the good opportunities it's been playing different positions with your time at Northside.
So like me coming in like as a freshman, I played quarterback in Metro, so that's just what I did, you know. So that's what I came in as a freshman to, and then my sophomore year is when I had got switched to DB when Coach Tyree was there. So like, and then that's what I played my junior year, and then coming into my senior year, we knew there was no quarterback, you know, having Bodie graduating and everybody else. So, and I played quarterback my freshman year, so that's what they did. They just put me at quarterback.
Absolutely, and it's been quite a season for you so far. I said 75% of your passes, and all of that. This Friday, another big one in the SAC for you and your teammates, traveling to Lures, a big game with, you know, I feel like, and you probably understand this too. Every game in the SAC is big, particularly now that they've kind of split things into divisions, and so you and Northside and going up against Lures this Friday. Just talk to me a little bit about that matchup and just week to week what you're able to take away as the quarterback again, and how that applies to your preparations, especially going into this week as you guys face off with the Lures Knights.
So we going up against Lures at Lures, which is a tough matchup any time of the year, especially since now the divisions have got split in two. So every game in the SAC counts now. So with us playing Lures, we gotta focus on getting the ball in the end zone. Because our defense, they do a great job. They did a great job all year. So we just got to put the ball in the end zone so we can get some points.
Absolutely. That's a key thing. And I know Lures has been able to find that same success. We mentioned on that slide you're a track guy too. Very fast. I think you're the sectional champion from a year ago last spring in the 100-meter dash. I think runner-up in conference. Also the school record holder. I mean, talk about that. I mean, that's some big territory for you to be a school record holder in track at Northside, a school over 100 years old. Just talk about that aspect of it and really how the track side of things kind of translates onto the football field and what you're able to do on Friday nights.
So being the sectional championship in the 100, it feels great. And also being not the world record, the school holder. And like, it took a lot of time for me to like really like know how to run. So like, since I started doing track, like I know how to run and my forms got better. So like, since my form is tighter, that means I can run faster without the wind hitting me and stuff. So, and then how that translates on Fridays is everybody, like defensive people, when they try to tackle me, they got to widen their arms out to wrap me. And that's just like gives me extra, like slows them down so I can just like run past them, you know?
Absolutely. Well, that's that's great to hear. I mean, I was very, very impressed to hear, just that speed. I think 10.8, is that what the school record is? 10.79, something along those lines. What is it?
10.80.
10.80, the official school record for Northside, and as the school record holder, also sectional champion a year ago, and now quarterback for the Northside Legends. Well, Tristan, I thank you so much for joining us this week on Upon Further Review. We had to kind of shift the schedule a little bit to get you on. I know you're a busy guy with school and work and everything else, and we appreciate you coming on to represent the Northside Legends this week. And good luck to you on Friday and the rest of the way. We'll see what happens on Friday night when Northside travels to Bishop Luers to face them in a big SAC game. And we'll be there with the 1380 game of the week presented by Midwest Box Breaks. And we'll look forward to another big game for you and a great season along the way.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. That was Tristan Newsome, the talented quarterback from the Northside Legends, joining us tonight here on Upon Further Review. We thank you for joining us, And remember, you can catch that game Friday night at 7:00 on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. The PSM High School Football Tailgate pregame show starts at 6, and then this postgame show at the Southgate Pizza Hut immediately following the game. Yeah, Coach, a really cool interview with him that we were able to record a little bit earlier in the week, and just a really dynamic player, fast, like he mentioned, the sectional champion in track. And so that does present a different element to that Northside team at quarterback, where if he gets out in the open and that open field, the legs on him, the sprinting ability, he's gone. I mean, 10.8 school record holder, pretty remarkable. And he's shown that he's got quite an arm too.
Well, you can't coach speed. And so somebody like that, like you said, can be a big weapon in what they like to do offensively by spreading it out. And, like you said, completion wise, he's done that. He's hyped completions. He's not really turning the ball over much, but he's having, had a really good game this past Friday, 3 touchdowns, 14 of 18 for 200 yards. I mean, the kid is a skilled athlete there at Northside, and he is somebody that can distribute the football for them to the guys they need to get the ball in their hands. But he also is something that they can create an offense around, with him at the quarterback spot. So that benefits them greatly. And like you said, they got a big win, 29-22 over Northrop, and tight ball game for them. And outside of the slow start, they did go up to beat Northridge week 1, which was a big turnaround for them. And he had a good game week 1. And now they're 2-1. and they've got a huge game on Friday with Bishop Lures, and that, we'll be at that ball game. But in a lot of ways, that ball game ultimately could lend itself a long way to who may win that B division, and ultimately could lend itself to who may or may not win the overall SAC championship. Because I'm not sure if Carroll and Northside play this year. Maybe they do. I can't remember.
Do some. So the Carroll Northside game is the last game of the season on October 18th.
So they could both go into that ball game needing a win, let's say, to come out on top, maybe. Or be a spoiler in one way or the other. So that game has a lot riding on it.
Head element too, because neither Carroll nor Snider play Lures. And Snider does not play Northside either, by the way. So I think for that was kind of the contentious part with the SAC in the breakdown, is that ultimately your B division champ was not playing either of the A division
top
two.
That's just the way the schedule worked out.
And next year that will change. I don't have next year, and
right.
All that out. And that's what we're going to see. And it's not going to be the first. It will be the first time. Well, last year was the first time, but it probably won't be the last time. It could possibly happen again. So far, if you look at the SAC standings, both in conference play, Lures and Carroll are 3-0, and Homestead is 3-0, and they've got a big one with Snider. So, I mean, Homestead's game, coach, this week with Snider to keep pace, to keep in that undefeated side of things in the conference, especially with Carroll down the road. I mean, this is probably a bigger game for Homestead than it is for Snider in some respects, if that makes sense.
Well, it is. Homestead had a big win against Bishop Dwenger, 17-14. That shows some promise with them. Again, they're kind of like Northside in the sense that they had a rough couple of weeks there at the beginning of the year. And I do believe now they've won 3 straight. So, when you get into a game like this, it's kind of itself has its own rivalry. Snider's got, like I said, Snider offensively is going to have to really, look at what, where they need to get some of their their big plays from. I know Vance gives them some ability when he's out on the perimeter and stuff, but they do got to throw the football. And that's the one thing that hurt them Friday night, is they really didn't throw the football very well. And when they did, Carroll got some big interceptions. So I would say Homestead and Snider are pretty equally matched talent-wise. White is going to be the difference maker there at quarterback. He's a little bit better than Vance is probably. But, Brandon Logan can be a factor at any given moment in time. And, their 2 running backs are decent. Davis and can't remember the other kid's name off the top of my head, but Davis, I thought, ran the ball well. Again, the young offensive line that Snider has is, still a young offensive line. So yeah, you're right. This game for Homestead and Snider should be a really good game, but for Homestead, it could ultimately set up all the marbles when Carroll plays at Homestead here in another week. So, yeah. I mean, we're just in that time of year now, dude, as we always say. It's, the time of year where the schedule starts meeting up with who is and who isn't contenders, and you're going to start seeing those teams play each other, whether it's in the Summit Athletic Conference, what A or B divisions, or in the Northeast 8. I mean, it's all going to be a factor here now over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and if you look at, looking at that Homestead Dwenger game from Friday, another really close one, 17-14, Homestead pulls out that victory. And 17-7 was the score at half for Homestead, and they didn't score in the second half. So,
right.
But I think too, from a stat wise, Michael White, another really solid game, 12 for 17, 120 yards, and a rushing touchdown. And of course, the defense for Homestead was the difference maker there with their ability to have 2 interceptions. One was a pick 6 by Kane Nancaro. And so he was able to get one, and that was the difference maker. So, Dwanger continues to struggle and find, and just 14 points here, and they don't have a lot this year, but Homestead got it done, defensive side of things. So the Snider defense needs to be ready for Friday, because we know that probably it's going to be more of an air attack from Homestead with the running ability thrown in there of Michael White, but just 98 rush yards for Homestead. They're just, we know that their go-to is going to be the passing game with the ability that they have, 121 yards through the air for 4 different guys. So, I think that's a key part of it. But yeah, that's always a big one. It's at Homestead. Homestead tripped up Snider a year ago, gave them their loss right after that Snider win. So they're trying to avoid that again. Homestead trying to stay undefeated in the conference. Carroll going to Wayne, trying not to get tripped up after their big win over Snider. So that's where the SAC becomes, every game becomes important, because realistically, there's some teams that can sneak in there and play a little bit of spoiler, and Wayne, it could be one of them. And obviously that Homestead Snider matchup is in some ways just as big a rivalry as Carroll Snider from a longer period of time, but should be an interesting one on Friday night there as well.
Well, I tell you, the other one up there, and then we can move on, is I'm just so surprised that Dwanger is 1-4.
Yeah.
I mean, and 1-2 in the league. I would have never thought that, but they've played a tough road up to now. They've had their biggest challenge has been their schedule. It's not been overly favorable for them, and when you look at it, you play Brownsburg, perennial power, Moeller, perennial power. They get the tough fought win at Fort Wayne North in the big one there, and then they lose to Carroll and Homestead. I mean, it's a tough schedule, and they got Northrop coming this weekend, and that's, who knows what's going to happen there. So
yeah. I mean, realistically too, this, if you look at the points per game, 12 points per game, offense for Dwanger, 28 on defense, and Northrop's a team that can throw the ball around, and win or lose, they can put up some points. So that becomes an intriguing matchup, just because Dwanger's struggles, but also too Northrop, even in losing, which has happened a lot this year. I feel like they're scoring a lot more, win or lose, and I think
their defense did better because they only gave up 29. I mean, they were giving up 40 and 50.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and so that should be interesting. And realistically, I mean, Dwanger beat Lures 14-7, or Northside, I should say, 14-7 a couple weeks back. So, is it kind of like Dwanger and Northside are kind of in that same level? So it should be interesting, because that was a close game with Northrop and Northside on Friday. And then, of course, they finish out with Snider and Concordia, just Dwanger in that one. And just looking at some of the other games in the SAC, we mentioned Carroll at Wayne, Concordia at Southside. There again, Coach, that one, we keep talking about the different opportunities for Southside. I mean, Concordia started out pretty well and is looked promising. I think for Southside, they're getting another opportunity to kind of maybe see where they kind of rank against some of the other teams in the league, and Concordia team that their defense has given up a lot of points to, might be beneficial to Southside come Friday.
Yeah. I mean, again, you're getting, they're getting the opportunities to play some like-minded schools in terms of their size and what they have on each sideline. So those games are going to be opportunities for both of them. Outside of the SAC, when you look at the rest of the schedules there, NE8, we've already talked about that one. The biggest game in that may be the Huntington North at DeKalb game, just because of what Huntington North has done. And, Columbia City took care of business, and they did what they needed to do last week against DeKalb. And then up in the ACAC, Heritage is out of conference this week.
Yeah.
And everybody else is kind of playing teams that, they should beat.
I mean, Adams Central, South Adams, that's a classic rivalry. Not quite the same South Adams team this year. Adams Central appears to be, and this is week 6, even though the banner says week 5, but Adams Central appears to be that same team that we've seen all along for the most part. Just a slight hiccup at Garrett in week 1, but ultimately, I mean, they handled business on Friday with Heritage. They're in the driver's seat once again, and there's not a whole lot in front of Adams Central from the conference standpoint that I think can trip them up.
Well, right. And, like you said last week.
Well, Bluffton's in there. Don't want to discount Bluffton.
Well, they won a tough game. They had to go to Jay County. We talked about that one in the pregame show.
Yeah.
And the game that surprised me again is the Adams Central and Heritage game. I thought maybe Heritage would have the opportunity this year, but again, when you only got a couple days to prepare for what Adams Central brings to the table and their unique offense, it's just tough to defend. So, when is the let's see, Bluffton
AC.
Well, Adams Central plays South Adams this week, so there's the rivalry game of it all.
Bluffton and Adams Central is on October 11th.
So that's shaping up for a big one at the end of towards the end of the season.
Still has Heritage on October 4th, the week before. So Bluffton goes from Heritage to Adams Central in those 2 weeks. So that will really be a big test because and in Southern Wells this weekend, it's just one of those I think the idea is get in, get out early, get your lead guys out. It's probably going to be a running clock scenario, my guess, and then get ready for Heritage and then Adams Central in those 2 weeks, because those are going to be barn burners of a game. And it's nice to have those towards the end of the season as well, where, so there is still some opportunity for that. I think Bluffton and Adams Central, an opportunity to trip up Adams Central. But Bluffton has a couple opportunities where with Heritage and then AC that, it's a really tough schedule down the line. And they finish out of conference. So realistically for Bluffton, I mean, they got Southern Wells, Heritage, Adams Central, then out of conference. So really you're looking, the next 2 weeks, which are in 3 weeks for them. I mean, that's kind of what it looks like for Bluffton, because I think they should.
The best game Friday night on the schedule is going to be Garrett at West Noble.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
that by far is probably the best game in Northeast Indiana. Is Garrett at West Noble because of the Railroaders having a good start to everything, and then West Noble they got a lot of talent. So all big games, everything in that regard. Remember, we'll be out at Bishop Lures versus Northside on Friday night for the 1380 Max Brock Breaks high school
Midwest box
game.
break. Yep.
Midwest box. It's a tongue twister. Midwest box breaks high school football game of the week. Of course, the 6:00 pregame show with Jim Shevelin and Doot and myself. Always fun, and we'll have all the games as we see on the schedule for Friday night. But another week is down in the books. We're fastly approaching the end of the season. It's crazy. The draw will be shortly, and but we'll be ready to go on Friday night again. Remember to follow us on all the different social media platforms that are out there. Of course, if you need to download a game, you can download that on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and take it along with you, whether you're going to work or heading to a game on Friday night. We'll see you again next week on Thursday night at the same time, at the same place. For Mr. Eric Dukevich, I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith. We'll see you all Friday night right here on Upon Further Review.